Hi, and welcome to First Draft for the month of October. Happy fall to those of you that are in climates where there is fall. um, so we are excited this month to talk to you all about email marketing, how to do that, what you do once you have people on your email list, and then some tips and tricks to make that a little bit easier on yourself. So before we dive into that topic, we will go around the room and introduce ourselves. I am Mary Chris Escobar. I write women's fiction. And as far as drinks this month, I'm actually just going to promote a brewery that I've really been enjoying recently called Urban Family Brewing in Seattle. They changed their beers a lot, and I just went online before we went live to try to tell you about the last beer I had from them that I enjoyed, and I can't find the name of it. So I will just promote that. I've really been enjoying them. They're very, very small craft, small batch beer, lots of kind of funkier things that would pair really well with nice sharp cheeses and good baguettes and that kind of thing, which always makes me think of fall and picnics outside.
Now I want to have a picnic outside.
I know, with beer and good sharp cheese. That's my job here, is to
make us hungry and thirsty.
Exactly. So I will go around the room. I'll go to Alexis Ann next.
Hi, I'm Alexis Ann. I write contemporary and erotic romance, and today I have an Appalachian Mountain Brewery. It's the Boone Creek Blonde, and
oh, that's a cute can.
It is. It's a nice can, and Boone's up in the mountains from here. It's a fun place to visit. It's where Appalachian State is. This one it's also a light one. It's brewed with honey and orange zest, so it's light, but it does have a lot of flavor to it. So it's been a fun fall beverage for us to indulge in. It's crisp. It says crisp mouthfeel followed by a hint of sweetness from wildflower honey, and that's exactly how it tasted.
There you go. I am historical author Julia Kelly and contemporary romance author Julia Blake. I don't have it with me right now, but this month I am going to promise you guys a recipe for a fantastic French 75, which is a great lemon gin champagne cocktail. If you're feeling, celebratory, or it's Tuesday and you just want to drink, it's one of my favorite things. It was actually the first cocktail I learned how to make when I was far too young to be making cocktails. One of our family friends showed me. So, trying to lead me on the path to corruption, I'm sure. But that is my drink this month. So
Awesome. It's also like a go-to gin drink that you can get everywhere. Like sometimes it's hard to find gin drinks, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. So what do we want to start with this month in kicking off talking about email marketing? Can one of you just kind of talk a little bit about what we're talking about when we talk about email marketing?
We're talking about your newsletter.
Yeah.
Yes. Very simple terms.
We've talked about it a few times. Even if you don't have a book out yet, hopefully you have a newsletter link already collecting people, even if it's just your family and friends. Start collecting people as soon as humanly possible, because your newsletter is something that's always yours. These are people who've chosen to subscribe to you. It's not owned by Facebook. It's not owned by your website that may crash and burn. These are names that... Because that happens.
Gosh, that's my nightmare. It's happened to me once before, guys. Back your website up.
Back everything up, including your email list, because those can travel with you everywhere. They're people who've selected into you, so that's yours, and it's your ability to market to them and harness what you can out of the people who want to know things from you. That's what we're talking about today.
And you'd be shocked at how often, even close friends and family, the people who will buy your book first off when you have your very first book and nobody knows who you are, you will be shocked at how obsessed you are with the release date of your book and how few of them will know what your release date is, even though you've told them 10 times.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Like, I've been talking about this nonstop. How do you not know this?
It's so important to you, and yet it's not the center of the universe to anybody else. So why would they have your release date on the top of their head,
Exactly.
And email, I feel like in the world of people having varying interaction with social media, on top of it being you own your email list, Facebook doesn't own it, which I think, Alexis, that's the most important reason to do this. But it's also like something people are still consistently checking. Like, even if you're maybe feeling like you're taking a break from Facebook or you're not as active on Twitter anymore, most people are still getting email pushed to their phone or still checking email because a lot of things go there. Your bills go there, emails from family go there, you might be using it for business. So I think it's also just a consistent thing in a world of lots of options, but I feel like it's the common denominator that a lot of people are still using and checking.
It's also the thing where you can directly go in and say to somebody, send a direct message to them, whereas with things like Facebook, you're often at the mercy of algorithms, whether somebody was first, very much for Twitter, whether somebody was on at the right time, when you sent your tweet out. It's a movable timeline, so you're just trying to kind of hit people almost like buckshot. But with email, it's a very directed thing, so you are speaking directly to the person that you're trying to communicate with.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So how do you get those people there? So how do you, it's a great idea, but how do you get people to sign up? Because a really important distinction that we want to make is never, ever, ever do you just put people on a mailing list. Like even your closest friends or that really nice person you just met at a conference, like no, like they need to opt in.
Exactly.
Correct.
So how do you get people to choose to let you come into their inbox?
Well, there's an expression, beg, borrow, and steal. You do everything but steal.
Yeah. There are a few different options. One of my most effective organic ways of getting people onto my email list was I did serials. And at the end of every serial, which serials they're not necessarily like cliffhangers, but you really want the next installment. And at the end of every installment, it said, sign up for my newsletter to get an alert as soon as it's available. And I got a huge, that was my first huge push to my newsletter outside of family and friends. Obviously, you can post the links to social media to get people to sign up. Outside of having a cliffhanger or a serial, just having it at the front and the back of your book so that people who are reading you, who want to connect with you, who want to know more, have a very easy way of clicking and making sure they're signed up for your newsletter. That's probably the second most effective way of getting people to sign up for your newsletter. And then there are other less organic ways of getting people.
That's a nice way of putting it.
There are email marketing things that you can buy into, like Ryan Z is a really big one. There are a few others that have popped up where you basically become part of a giveaway, and part of the way people enter the giveaway is by signing up for your newsletter. And then it's up to you to use all of these strategies that we're going to talk about throughout the rest of the show to turn those people who maybe don't even know who you are, who've signed up through a giveaway like this, into a reader and somebody who is happy to be subscribed to your list. One other thing that I did forget to mention that's semi-organic is if you're doing a lot of Facebook parties, one of the big things that I always suggest is make sure you have people either sign up as part of the events that you're doing on the giveaway, or at least make sure you have it very clearly posted as part of your presence in the giveaway that this is how you sign up for my newsletter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to signpost for people every single chance that you get. And it's going to feel weird and obnoxious to you, but you're going to see all that material, and the people that you're trying to reach may see 1 of 7, 1 of 10 different times that you're posting this type of thing.
Right.
Yeah, in multiple places.
Well, and I two things on that. On your website, also something that's going to feel maybe possibly awkward is to have a sign up pop-up or a sign up bar at the top, which I know I heard all the stats on like how good that is to do, and it still feels kind of icky when you first put it up there. But honestly, there's ways that you can set that so frequent visitors to your website don't get it again.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
3 months. Yeah. So, there's also ways you can set it so if you have a blog, people only get that if they read to the end of your blog. So you're trying to catch people who really like your content. But definitely that reminder, that signpost. So using something that pops up to remind people that you have a newsletter and that they can get updates from you that way. And then super old-fashioned, if you are doing signings, just take there's a non-old-fashioned way to do it, which is to take an iPad, but you can also just take like a legal pad of paper and sign people up for that. So if you're doing workshops or signings, you can do that. Again, on that legal side, I always, if I actually do catch myself using a legal pad, I put a column for like opt into my email and people have to put a check mark on that. And I literally have like taken pictures of that physical document and saved them. You don't anticipate anything's ever going to happen, but you want to be very clear that people have chosen to be a part of your newsletter.
Yeah, there are some countries where there are actual laws in place. I know the UK is switching over, because I know somebody who's having to deal with this right now, where you must have an unsubscribe and you must have a double opt-in. I don't think the double opt-in is legal, is a legal issue here, but the unsubscribe is. And the reason is that somebody needs to be able to remove themselves from your mailing list if you want to, if they are part of your mailing list. So there always needs to be an option for somebody to get off. And you want that person to get off, because otherwise you're going to end up getting marked as spam, and it's not helpful and not productive. You're going to, at some level, if you have enough subscribers, be paying a fee to whatever mail subscriber you use or mail service you use. And so a dead subscriber, somebody who's just not opening your stuff, who doesn't want to be there, is actually going to end up costing you money down the line. So
yeah, definitely. So once you've got these people there, so all these different methods, however they've come to you, whether it's, through a service or through the back of your book or however they signed up, what do you do with them once they're there? So you've got this list of people who want to know what you're doing, but what do you do with them?
There is this huge debate raging right now, and I can guarantee it's going to be raging in October when this show comes out, about how much we should be flooding readers with email, whether we are flooding readers with email, whether the fact that they've opted in and said, this is something I want to hear from you, means they just want to hear new release stuff, or whether they want to get a lot more communication from you a lot more often. It's kind of a weird zone right now, just in terms of there are these two major philosophies and they're totally split. So I'm, and Alexis is as well, doing something that I think has really grown in popularity, to try to avoid, especially with giveaways and things like that, the people who are just signing up for your newsletters with the freebies and then, never, with no intention of ever, actively being a contributor to your reader group or whatever. So I'm running people through automations where basically when they sign up, they get an email from me thanking them, giving them a free book, then they get a follow-up email following up and asking if they've downloaded their free book a few days later. And then it triggers basically this series of emails that's introducing them to my backlist. So I'm trying to sell my backlist through various things, although I'm always prioritizing freebies first to ease them into, and to just try to get them to read some of my stuff. And I'm trying to also, send them some emails about what genres do they read, whether they want to be part of a reader Facebook group, whether they want to be part of an ARC team so they get some free books in exchange for reviews if they leave reviews. And basically you're building up to and facilitating a relationship where they know that you are somebody that they read and they recognize your name, and so you build up this relationship. And then when you start seeing things from them, like clicking on buy links for books that are, $1.99, $2.99, $4.99 full price, you start moving them off of that list because they're already an engaged reader, and they can go to a general email list that's going to be like new releases, cover reveals, excerpts, updates from you about what's coming next from your writing career. So that's trying to build the personal relationship with your reader. You can also just blast them when you have a new release coming out. And I know a lot of people who do that and who are very successful with that, but they've set up the expectation that they're only going to email their readership when there's very, very, very big news, which is basically a book is out. So different philosophies.
I think one of the big things you just touched on that was a mind shift for me was like 3 years ago, newsletters were very much about the sell. It was getting your book into people's inboxes so that they would buy it. And it was very much I have a book out, or I have a book on pre-order, and it was all about the sell. And it oversaturated people's inboxes after a while, and people stopped opening newsletters. And there's been this shift recently toward newsletters are still effective, but especially if you're developing that relationship with the people who are getting that newsletter. And so one of my big shifts this month has been really stop thinking of the newsletter as a way to sell things, but as a way to develop a relationship with the reader, for them to get to know me through the type of content that I'm sending them, and for me to get to know who they are and what it is that they want for me as the writer. And so it's a two-way street, and the newsletter is just an opportunity to have that conversation and for everybody to get to know each other in the process.
I think one of the big tricky questions with that, and I'm struggling with this right now because I'm trying to figure out, how much of my life do people A, want to know about, and B, do I want to let them know? So, it's a really hard question to answer, and I think you have to it's all personal, right? So it's how much do you put of yourself on social media? How much of yourself do you put out, in newsletters? What relationship do you want to build? And what is your comfort zone? And you have to figure out what that is. But I think that a lot of it is trial and error. So you're going to send out some newsletters that are going to be fantastic for you and are going to work really, really well. And maybe, things where you give away something for free are going to have higher open rates and click rates and all those things. And maybe the sort of more breezy, chatty, this is what's going on with me. This is, what's happening in my reader life or my writer life right now. Maybe that stuff that doesn't get as much of an open, but the people who are opening those are getting a sort of to know you and you're drawing the curtain back a little bit. So it's this behind the scenes kind of look. It's just a question of how much behind the scenes do you want to give away? So.
Well, and I think the other thing to think about with that is how can you provide value? And sometimes that to your readers, other than through your books. And I think sometimes that helps with that question of how much do I let people into my life? Because I'm perfectly comfortable recommending books, talking about a recipe I made, recommending beers. Those are all letting people into my life, but not my personal life.
Exactly.
Sure. I mean, it's, this is what I'm cooking. This is what I'm drinking. This is what I'm enjoying reading. So I think, and how I always try to look at that is, I think there's pieces of my life that don't provide value to anyone else's life. I mean, I like my life and the people in it, but it doesn't matter to anybody. It's not providing value to a reader, except for the value for maybe how I write, how I feel about something into my fiction. That's maybe providing value. But so for me, I think the struggle has always been to try to figure out how to have those conversational emails that are not just selling in a way that provides value to readers. And I get the concept, but I will 100% admit that I haven't been able to fully tap into that and find what resonates with people. But I think if you frame it that way, that gets you a little bit out of the oh my gosh, what am I going to share? How personal am I getting? Yeah.
Well, I think especially in the beginning of getting to know your reader, they want to know about the books. They want to know about the writing process. They want to know that kind of stuff. And so you don't even really need to worry about anything remotely personal for a little while. And then it should just be something that relates to what they would be interested in. Cooking and drinking and things like that are all very easy ways to make yourself more personable to the reader without having to actually introduce them to your life. Hi.
Yeah. I am going to be super name droppy here for a second with people who nobody here is going to know. My friend, Books on GIF, runs a newsletter, and his newsletter is his reviews. But he recommended to me a woman named Molly Mersh. I don't know how to say her last name. Mir Hashim, I think. And she is an editor for Outside Magazine. And one of the reasons that I really like, he recommended the newsletter because she's a big reader of just all sorts of long form journalism. And she does a newsletter every week that's really interesting, where she talks about what I've been working on, things that have been really interesting that have popped up that I've read. And she just happens to be the running editor. And so all of the stuff that she recommends, and I'm looking at Mary Chris right now, is all running related and athletics related. But then she gets into sort of, stories about, I don't know why, the Taffy interview about Tom Hiddleston that set off the whole, who is this mysterious woman who Tom Hiddleston's dating, that one. So she recommended that article and sort of a lot of different interesting pop culture things. And I read her newsletter faithfully every single week because to me it's a value add. She's going through and curating all of the things that I don't have the time to read. And so I just get the best from somebody whose taste is very similar to mine. So you can do things like that. You can say, these are books that I've read that I think you guys are going to love. You can do, different elements of yourself, like you said, that are personal without being your entire life out there. If you want to put your entire life out there and you're comfortable with that, that's totally fine. There are people who've made whole careers on confessional style, relationships with their readers. That's a degree of exposure that I'm not comfortable with. So, you just have to figure out where you are and what your readership wants. Also, I think Alexis brought up that point as well. Figure out, they want the books, but what else is it that kind of drives them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's an element that's through your books a lot. Like, I don't know. I always have characters that can't cook because I love to cook, and I love that element of I have no idea what I'm doing to feed myself, and having a character work their way through that. So that's an easy thing to talk about. And then, of course, I love coffee, whiskey, and all things frisky. And so I love talking about coffee and whiskey and all things frisky. And that's an easy way to be like, here's the bourbon I like drinking right now, or here's my brand of coffee. And give you little snippets of it without it being, I drink 3 cups of coffee and I drink them in this location.
Yeah.
And today I needed an extra cup because this went wrong. Yeah, exactly. So just really quickly, before we talk a little bit about some ways to make all this easier on yourself, what is a good frequency, do you think? I think there's 1,000 opinions. There's as many opinions on this as there are newsletters in the world. So.
That's what I'm trying to figure out myself right now.
Yeah.
I do think
maybe trial and error.
It is trial and error, and knowing yourself too. Like, just because your readers want it once a week or once a month or once a quarter doesn't mean that that's what you have to do, especially if it doesn't make sense for you. If writing something once a week is too much, don't do it once a week, because then you're going to fail. And failure is not the goal here.
Yeah. And
or you're going to write really crappy stuff.
Right. I think, with Mary Chris, you had a long-standing newsletter, and at some point you realized it wasn't serving what you wanted to be doing any longer, and so you stopped doing it. And the whole point behind that is, don't do something that's no longer working for what it was that you set out to have it do. So you can change tack. You can decide, you're no longer going to send out a weekly newsletter, a monthly newsletter, a quarterly newsletter. You can decide you are going to do one of those things because you think it's going to fit much better with your readership base and things like that. So I think it really just depends on where you are at what point in your career and what you think your readers want from you, and then what you can then support doing, because you have to write books at some point also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in weekly email does not a book, right? Unless you're going to put it in a memoir and publish it somehow. But yeah, I think, that was it for me. And I also running that thing through the filter of value add. I wasn't adding value to anyone. I think my mom really enjoyed hearing from me every week, but I heard her on the phone. So I don't think anyone else really cared. And that's not entirely true. I mean, I definitely had some people who were very, very loyal and would respond really regularly. And you know what? Those are the handful of people that will be really, really grateful when I do send out updates about something new that I'm putting out and that kind of, and you're not losing those people at all. It was taking too much of my time for too little value add to my readers.
Well, we have different goals at different times too. Mm-hmm. If you're working on cultivating a relationship and people are opening and you're happy to write the newsletters, then for a period of time, a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter makes sense. But you may have a different goal at a different point where you're writing a lot of books and you just want people to be informed of what's going on in the process. And that's a different goal for a different time. Don't be afraid to change your goal. And that's one of the reasons why I changed my wording on my opt-in. It used to say you'll only get updates on new releases, and then at a different time it said something like you're going to get weekly updates, and I'm like, I'm not making this promise at the opt-in anymore other than you're getting my newsletter.
Yeah. Right. Which leaves you a lot of flexibility. And to your point that, sometimes you're going to need to send newsletters more frequently. You basically had a get over yourself moment that I needed the other day when we were talking, Alexis, and I was just like, I feel really uncomfortable with the fact that I just sent a release newsletter. I just found out that my cover is up for my pre-order is up for my second historical book. And then on top of it, I have another follow-up newsletter, post release date for the contemporary stuff. And they're going to come out like 1 week after another. And I feel really weird about that, but I'm just going to have to get over it because this is stuff that is actually coming out. It's not going to serve me or anybody else holding it back, because readers who are signed up for that newsletter want to hear about things like release dates and pre-orders and cover reveals and all of those things. And so I did have to have a moment of being like, this feels really weird to you. I swear it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and I think, when you send those out, they're short, they're quick. They're, here's my cover, here's my book. Like, it's not like somebody's feeling like they need to read a 5-page tome on your blog. I mean, it's just like,
Right.
hey, this is coming, like letting you know.
And that's a good point, because short sometimes can be really, really effective. And one link can also sometimes be really effective. If your whole point is to get people to leave Goodreads reviews on your book, and you send out a please review my book, make the one link that they can click on a link to Goodreads. They have no other choice but to choose to, if they get off that email, go to Goodreads. And then you obviously don't have any control over what they do after that, because you can't reach into the computer and say, please leave a review at Goodreads. But what you can do is you can encourage behavior, right? So if what you want them to do is click on buy links, make the only things in your email buy links.
Again, making sure you know what your goal is and make sure you're feeding the goal.
Exactly. So that's kind of a good segue, like you're talking about having all those emails to send out, Julia. How do you make this easier on yourself? Because clearly, that's a lot to keep up with in your head. So how do you track when you need to send things? How do you make it easier on yourself?
I'm going to show you my magic book. I have a magic book. So we talked in the September first draft about release schedules, and I did not, excuse me while I take sensitive Post-it notes off of this. I did not show this, but I have a whole list of things that I do for release day. And one of those things, as you try to zoom in, so what I'm showing basically is a whole checklist of things that I have written down as reminders. One of those things is a newsletter automation. That's not an actual automation, but like a best practices set of newsletters that I send out for a release date. So I know that I'm going to send a cover reveal. I know that I'm going to send, a release date email, an excerpt a few weeks beforehand, a, follow up for people who didn't open the release day newsletter, those types of things. So I have that built in. So I already know I've kind of taken the pressure off of having to create that every single time. And what I'll do is one afternoon, I did it on a train trip actually this last time around, I just wrote all of them. I just wrote all of the emails, and it's tedious, it's a little annoying, but it's done, it's scheduled. It was scheduled 2 months out. So it meant that I, in the middle of another book that I was writing, and the deadline for that, didn't have to worry about basically creating that part of my email for a little while. So I knew those emails were coming out. I didn't have to write any of the sort of, this is my life status update, which I actually think I'm doing less and less of those, because those to me aren't serving the readership, as we were talking about. I don't think anybody's getting value add out of long rambling emails from me. So I'm trying to go shorter, trying to go more compact, and sprinkle in some of the update emails when there is something that feels relevant to, whatever my readers are interested in, whether it's, the historical or the contemporary side, but then also making sure that I'm really on top of that release day stuff. Because ultimately, even though we don't want it to all be a sell, it's building up to a sell, and the sell should be done and should be done right. So that's the thing I've decided is most important to me.
And you're scheduling those, so you're writing them in advance and you're scheduling them through your email provider,
yeah, and
correct?
I was telling you guys also, I feel really, really weird about sending something and actually having it go out when I click the button.
It feels
like,
different.
As an immediate thing. It feels so different, and I schedule so much stuff now because, again, I do my email scheduling at weird times, and I try to make sure that it's done so I'm not scrambling on a release day when I'm frazzled. It feels really uncomfortable and like kind of weird to be sending out an email that hasn't sat there in a queue for a while.
Well, it's very immediate, and if you're on MailChimp, it's got the send now thing going on, and it feels
it's like a big red button, yeah.
What if I do something wrong or something? Whereas when you schedule it, it's just like, it's in the queue now. And MailerLite, I use both right now. So MailerLite's a little bit more or less intimidating. I just used all the wrong words to describe that, more or less. That was bad.
It is intimidating. It's not intimidating.
I am also a huge fan of doing things in chunks of time, partially because your brain is in one mode. And so instead of it being like, oh, today I have to do my blog and my newsletter, and then I have to write 2,000 words and doing all these different things that chop up your brain into different types of focus. I'm a huge fan of sitting down and saying, okay, for the next 2 days, all I'm working on are newsletters. And I'm going to write them, I'm going to automate them, I'm going to schedule them, I'm going to do whatever it is that I need to do to set myself up so that I don't have to worry about my newsletter for a month or 2 months or 6 months or whatever it is. The other thing you can do is have a template ready to go so that you just pop things in. You don't have to worry about the header or the signature, the social media links or anything. It's literally just copy, paste, insert, image or whatever it is, and it's ready to go. And then the other thing is automation, which is, I think it was kind of unknown to most of us a year ago, and then it was kind of like a dirty word for a little while. But if your main goal is to write, because you're a writer, an automation sequence can be your best friend, because you sit down, you take care of everything, and it just runs in the background for you. It's not cold, it's not impersonal. It's something that just introduces your reader to lead up to the sell, like Julia was just mentioning, and you don't have to have your brain space taken up by that all the time. Mm-hmm. It's work that you've done, and it's doing it for you in the background. And now both MailChimp and MailerLite offer automation as part of your services, so you don't have to worry about paying extra.
Helpful, and I think both you and I have found it is a big investment of time up front. But once you have it going, it runs itself. So long as you don't break it, which I have done, it will run itself, and you can add to it, and you can, do all of these things in order to continue this relationship with your readers. So you can start an automation, and it can be 4 emails long. And then as you see people approaching that 3rd email in the queue, because you can always see your queue in MailChimp, you can add a 5th email because you go, oh God, that's right, I have to keep doing my automation. So it can be a work in progress that you then tweak. And you can pull, like I've pulled something out of one of my automations that was clearly not getting clicked on. It was getting opened, but it wasn't getting clicked on. And I thought, that's too early to have that particular part of the automation. And so I just moved it to another section where I think it will serve better. So, and that can be really powerful, again, for the sort of paid giveaway things we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. Your automation is a great way to clean that list for people who had no intention of ever opening your emails ever, because they just clicked to get a free entry to a free download or free, giveaway, which is totally fine. It's just not what you want clogging up your list.
So real quick, just to let you guys know, an automation is a set of emails that go out automatically. And what you want an automation to do is to introduce yourself to the reader, to segment out who's actually clicking and who's actually engaging in your newsletter. So you do a sequence of emails that you give a free book, you ask them if they enjoyed the book, you tell them about the book you have for sale. You do a sequence of things that make sense so that you can segment out your readers into a more effective newsletter list. So you have a segment that you have filtered into a team of reviewers. You have a segment that you filtered into, they want a weekly email. So when I do send weekly emails, they get them. I have this list that they only click on when a book is out. They don't even click on the pre-orders. So I'm only going to send them my new release emails. And it makes your emails more effective in reaching the people that they need to reach. And that would be the reason that you do an automation and why you set up the sequence that you do.
And if someone has not ever done this and wants to learn, are there tutorials within the, mailer sites, or is there somewhere you can recommend? Yeah. Is it just kind of a Google? Okay.
I think we do. And I say that specifically because I don't find MailChimp to be particularly user-friendly in certain regards. In others, it's very user-friendly. But I find a lot of the sort of automation, like I opened it and closed it several times because I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I didn't want to accidentally trigger something. And then I went through and I did have to do a lot of teaching of myself to figure out how, and there are certain things that are kind of annoying that you can't branch off automations in the way that I want to, and so I'm still learning how to use the tool. They're pretty responsive on chat, which is helpful, and they do have a large help section of their website, but I do think that it's worth, rather than going in guns blazing and just hitting the automation and starting to send emails like crazy, I think it's worth spending some time doing some research, doing some reading, because it did for me take a little bit for my brain to click over and understand what it was that I was doing. The big thing for me was it's a flowchart. Okay, so if and I have drawn out literally a flow chart of what my automation looks like and what happens at what point, and if somebody doesn't do something, it triggers this behavior, and if they do that thing, then it triggers this behavior and that type of stuff. So I didn't find it. Yeah, I did not find it intuitive. So.
Yep.
Cool. And I jotted down maybe we can do that as a show in the future, something about how to set that up since you've both done it. I think we are probably about at our time. Yep. So any last minute things that you all want to add?
Yep.
Go forth and email with wild abandon.
Yes. People do want your emails.
They do.
Yes, and definitely the trial and error piece. So before we close off and say goodbye, I'll just quickly go around the room for you guys to promote anything that you would like to. So we'll start with Alexis Ann.
Hi, Alexis Ann. You can find me at alexisannbooks.com. I'm mostly on Facebook and Instagram, so if you want updates, follow me there. I don't really do Twitter.
And join her newsletter.
And join my newsletter. Oh my gosh, go to my website, and at the top right corner of my website, there's a tuxedo, and it says sign up for my newsletter, and you want to do that so that you get my news.
That is correct.
All right, Julia.
I am Julia Kelly and Julia Blake. I have my newest Julia Kelly book on October 9th. If we post this before then or if we post this after then, it is either just about to release or releasing. This is the magic of pre-recording, guys. So that is the first book. The Look of Love is the first book in my Matchmaker of Edinburgh series, which is a brand new Scottish historical romance series. It is a friends to lovers, marriage of convenience book, and I'm very, very excited that it's going to be in readers' hands and launching a brand new historical side for me. So should be pretty exciting. And you can follow me on juliakellywrites.com. That's probably the easiest place to go and get all the information.
All right. And again, I'm Mary Chris Escobar. I'm at marychrisescobar.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there, which I do not send out weekly anymore. But you do get a free novella for signing up. So check that out if you want to. Thank you so much for watching or listening today. Just a reminder that we are available on firstdraftwriting.com. So that's DRAUGHT, firstdraftwriting.com. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up for. And basically what that sign up does is you'll get a reminder and a link to our show in your inbox every month. So how convenient for you. You don't have to go remember to check our website to get that information. We also have a Facebook page that we post our episodes on. So if that is how you like to get your updates, feel free to join us over there. And then just a reminder that we are also on Patreon and would really, really appreciate your support of our show. We would love to be able to upgrade some of our recording software and equipment and also upgrade our website a little bit to tailor some things like that newsletter sign up a little bit better for you. So thank you very much for your support simply by listening and watching. But if you feel so inclined to help us keep this project going, we would really appreciate a donation on patreon.com. And we're at patreon.com/firstdraftwriting. Thank you so much. We will see you back next month for November. Take care.